Hello, and thanks for joining us on InfoFeed. Today, we turn our gaze to the land of the rising sun, where a silent, massive, and historic operation is about to begin, one that tells us everything we need to know about the fragility of our modern world. As of Wednesday, March 25, 2026, Japan is preparing for a go day that has been decades in the making. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi will officially authorize the release of the nation's state-owned oil reserves. It is a moment of profound significance, marking the largest and most aggressive use of emergency stockpiles in Japanese history. While the world's headlines are filled with the thunder of the U.S Iran conflict, Japan is fighting a quieter battle. The battle to keep its lights on and its economy breathing. To understand why this is happening, we have to look at the map. Japan is an island nation with almost no natural oil of its own, making it one of the most energy-vulnerable countries on Earth. It relies on the Middle East for over 95% of its crude oil, a staggering dependence that has become a security nightmare in the wake of the current war. The heart of the problem is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that has been effectively closed by Iran since the conflict with U.S. and Israeli forces began on February 28. Because tankers can no longer safely pass through this choke point, Japan's oil imports are expected to plummet by the end of this month. This isn't a theoretical crisis, it is a mathematical certainty. Prime Minister Takaichi, often compared to an iron lady for her decisive leadership, realized early on that Japan could not wait for a diplomatic miracle. On March 11, just as the International Energy Agency, or IEA, was coordinating a global response, she announced that Japan would move unilaterally and aggressively. Japan's defense against this energy famine is its massive strategic reserve, a three-tier system that is among the world's largest. As of today, Japan holds roughly 470 million barrels of oil, enough to last the entire nation for 254 days without a single new drop arriving. This system was born from the trauma of the 1973 oil crisis, a lesson in vulnerability that Japan promised itself it would never forget. Since 1978, the government has spent billions building vast underground caverns and floating tank farms to store this black gold. The operation we are seeing now is a phased surgical strike on the market. It began last Monday, March 16, when the government ordered private companies to release 15 days worth of their mandatory stockpiles. The state opens its own vaults, releasing an additional 30 days worth of government-held oil. In total, Japan is injecting 80 million barrels into its domestic refineries, a move that accounts for nearly 20% of its total emergency supply. For comparison, during the 1991 Gulf War, Japan only released 4 days' worth. Even after the devastating 2011 earthquake, it only released 25 days' worth. What we are seeing now is nearly double that, a testament to the severity of the Strait of Hormuz blockade. This release serves as a bridge, a way to buy time while Japan tries to secure alternative oil sources from the US and the Southeast Asia. Beyond the numbers, there is a social factor. The government is using this oil to fuel a subsidy program aimed at capping gasoline prices at 170 yen per liter. For the average Japanese family, this is the difference between a functional life and a crushing cost of living crisis. But there is a catch. Releasing reserves is like spending your life savings. Once it's gone, the vault is empty. Analysts warn that if the war in the Middle East lasts more than 6 months, even Japan's legendary reserves will begin to look dangerously thin. There is also a geopolitical contrast here. While the US is releasing oil to lower global prices, Japan is releasing it simply to ensure its domestic refineries don't run dry. It is a story of a nation that has mastered the art of strategic patience, waiting until the absolute last moment to pull the emergency lever. Japan is effectively telling the world that it will not be held hostage by a conflict thousands of miles away. It is a high-stakes gamble that proves energy security is the real currency of the 21st century. We see a nation that has prepared for 50 years of this exact moment. Yet, even with 254 days of oil, Japan remains at the mercy of a single narrow strait, and the decisions of leaders in Washington and Tehran. We praise the foresight of the Iron Lady and the discipline of the Japanese system. But we must also realize the grim reality it exposes. In 2026, even the most prepared nation on earth is only 8 months away from a total standstill. As we watch the first liters of state oil flow into the pipelines, the world is witnessing a nation strategically draining its final vault to outlast a global storm. Facts inform, but stories transform.